to call this thing?
I got it. Okay. Incredible, new, fantastic, astonishing, mighty, original, uncanny, sensational podcast.
I'm just going to put down Infamous.
Hello, and thank you for joining Infamous, the audio podcast. This is Brandon, or Mutilus on the forums.
And this is Parker. Go by Tweak on forums.
This is Jeremy. I'm not getting on the forums.
But, Jeremy, if you get on the forums, you'll get all these awesome gems of information about the rules, like what happens, what orientation a car has after you throw it. I've learned that on the forums.
Was there a good
Is
answer?
it upside down?
All right.
Sideways.
Sideways. You always place it perpendicular with the angle of which it was thrown from.
Oh my god. The angle
Does that clear
of the dangle is the proportionate to the heat of the meat, which I learned from
First, you have to
Beavis.
take a humidity reading to determine the current humidity in the room, and then you put the car on the side of the table off the game mat. Anyway, so thank you for joining us again for episode 9. Yeah, this is episode 9. So quick updates for announcements. We have our Tabletop Simulator game number 3 between myself and Parker is being uploaded as we speak to the U of the Tubes. And you can go online and watch it. It's cool. It's Defenders versus Cabal. We'll probably talk about that a little bit more in the pre-ramble after the credits.
It's a skosh.
Just a bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of talking. All right, so that brings us to news.
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 All right,
News.
this just
All
in.
right.
Not a whole lot of news this week, actually. Not a whole lot of news is what just came in. News on the business side of Atomic Mass Games. Their sister company, also owned by Asmodee, Fantasy Flight Games, has been building and managing Star Wars miniatures games for years. And Asmodee is now shifting all of their miniatures games, which is Armada, Legion, and their large flagship X-Wing. All the miniatures games are now going to be managed by Atomic Mass Games. Some of the employees that were working on the miniatures in the FFG side are now moving over to Atomic Mass Games, but now Atomic Mass Games is very much in creative control of those miniatures games. I've been playing Star Wars for a very long time, for like 5 or 6 years now. So I'll be interested to see if and how they make any changes to it. But the one thing I will actually say about the news that I heard, the first thing I thought was, man, Atomic Mass Games was doing such a good job with all their attention on MCP. I hope that attention is not diluted by having these other games in their pool, because it was clear that FFG did not have enough RAM to run all those games at the same time, and so like Armada just got very, very little releases while they were attending to Legion, and X-Wing is constantly giving releases because the player base is so large on it. But it makes me wonder. I hope that MCP doesn't get put on the back burner because of this new direction, but I don't know what you guys think about it.
I cannot imagine that they're going to continue on with basically the current personnel they had for just MCP.
Yeah.
Because obviously we know that a couple people from the design staff of X-Wing and stuff are moving over. They weren't necessarily the lead designers, I don't know, but I do know there are some people from FFG moving over to AMG. And so, obviously, there's that. I know they've hired some new people on to already expand before this was happening, even though they probably knew it was coming. I would expect them to basically do like a cooperative studio kind of thing. And so I'm sure there will be people in charge of different games. And it's not just going to be 4 games with the same people and they're just going to take turns designing one at a time. Like I really doubt that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm sure they've got a good infrastructure set up to be able to take care of all 4 games. They wouldn't have just said, hey, FFG, go away, like all your games are belong to us now, like, and not do anything to like actually succeed. And so like these guys know what they're doing. They've been designing games for a long time. So I think we'll be fine for that. Moving on to the far more important news.
We don't
Why
have
the-
affiliation
Why the fuck
lists.
don't we have our update?
So
I blame Star Wars. It's Star Wars' fault.
I think it is. I think it's 100% like attention given to that right now, and it's obvious. They sent out what was like a tweet or a Facebook message or something that said, hopefully we'll get them later this week. This was late last week. So as of taping right now, we still don't have the new affiliation list. So we know who the X-Men should be, but we don't know if the affiliation list will include more characters. The same thing's true for Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and we do not know if any of them belong in other factions. They're everybody in the Marvel universe.
We don't have the FAQ or the errata either.
Right, FAQ and errata.
They've said there's going to be a new errata, there's going to be an update to the rules book, and there's going to be a new FAQ.
Yep.
And we just don't have any of it.
Everybody's been an Avenger at least once. So Beast was actually like Golden Age Avenger, so he could be in there. Wolverine has been in the Modern Age. They've been Avenger a long time. The Cabal, it makes sense to throw folks like Mystique and into Criminal Syndicate. Cabal could be Mystique or Magneto. There's lots of places these characters could be going, but we do not know.
The rumor I heard is that Beast and Wolverine are going to be Avengers, and that Magneto and Mystique are going to be Cabal.
Yeah.
I think there was one other one too. There was one other weird faction thing. That
Storm could be Wakanda. She was the queen of Wakanda for a while.
Oh, I did hear that too. That's right. Yeah, I heard that too. But I mean, this is, I don't know if it's speculation or actual rumors, because a lot of people have been saying a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So, who knows? But that's actually just about it for news, because obviously they're quite preoccupied right now with the restructuring of their staff and the movement of incorporating two fairly sized games and one very big game of X-Wing into their current structure. So we'll see how that goes. But I know there are now several communities that are now looking to Atomic Mass Games, and I'm excited because these folks have done a really good job in the past. So we'll see how it goes.
I know there's been a lot of people online speculating and freaking out that they think that X-Wing is going to go to a miniatures-based game instead of a minis game, where you have to buy model kits and assemble them and paint them. And I don't know where that theory is coming from.
That's
just because Marvel is a models game, and they assume that it's going to transition into that. There's absolutely no evidence to back that up, and it wouldn't even make sense. The whole point of being able to assemble and paint your minis is that you can customize them heavily, and there's no customization to a TIE fighter, guys. It's not a big deal. I can't imagine, and not to mention it's not like Will Schick and Will Pagani are in there just carving models all day. They don't do that. All they do is they sign off on poses and stuff. All the actual physical production happens well outside of their building. I don't know why people would assume the models are going to change to Marvel type models. That's just crazy. And so I've been trying to talk those people off a ledge, but they don't seem to understand.
Well,
all right. So moving on.
Yeah, it's about news.
Parker, what are you playing?
So right now, I'm excited. I'm constantly tweaking a Criminals and Cabal list. At one point, it was Spider Foes and Cabal. But after our discussion in the last episode about Carol Danvers, my favorite captain, and what she could do in Cabal, I decided I was going to try out. And so basically, I made with your help, Brandon, we kind of put our heads together and wonder how could Cabal get the most out of Captain Marvel, and we think actually Wong would be an awesome partner for her, because she's feeding her powers in the early turn and healing her, and then also he's an amazing support in general. And it worked. In the game I got to play, she definitely got to do her thing. She got a lot of power. She was able to binary form and rerolls with 6 dice and get 4 power back. It was great. So I'm not leaving that one behind. I really like it a lot. It did make me stare at what she can do and wonder what other kind of characters. And so that's what I'm at the stage right now, is I'm tweaking the list. First thing I did was take out the Spider Foes, put in Criminal Syndicate, because I think it gives the list a different thing to do. I think Spider Foes just is another way to kill people, and Cabal does that just fine. I actually really like it. So now, actually, one of the things I'm staring at is, now that I've got to play the game a couple times, an old friendly foe is creeping up on me. I really can't stand rolling dice once. I love my rerolls. I really like dice modification, and there's not a lot of dice modification in either Criminal Syndicate or Cabal, with the exception of MODOK. Zemo rolls 1 dice, and yes, Dark Reign happens once, but that's it. And I want rerolls all the time. So that's one of the reasons why I loved Carol Danvers in this. I loved Captain Marvel because she's constantly getting rerolls, but I want all the rerolls. Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why I like Cabal still. I like Captain Marvel still, but now I'm looking at maybe some other options. So that's what I'm staring at right now, is I'm seeing how much dice mod can I put in my list, because I just like dice mod in general, and sticking with the Cabal formula with Captain Marvel. I liked it a lot.
Okay. So what I've been playing lately is Brotherhood / Defenders, although it's been almost exclusively Defenders, unfortunately. I want to get more actual Brotherhood games in. But I've been playing Magneto and Doctor Strange together, and then throw in one other good character, and then as much support as you can. So usually it ends up being Magneto, Strange with the Soul Stone, and like MODOK, which is unaffiliated, and then I've thrown in Ghost Rider. I actually like Ghost Rider a lot because it lets you play as Defenders, which gets you the pentagram. I was surprised at how little I cared I was unaffiliated in the one game I played. Mainly because with MODOK, Magneto, and Strange, they all generate so much power that you don't really miss the affiliation nearly as much as you think you would. I think playing just generic random characters unaffiliated is a bad idea, but I think that list did work. And then obviously with Ghost Rider, I think he's a little less good than MODOK, but they're pretty much in the same category. But getting in affiliation helps a lot. And then the more points you play, you can either upgrade to the Time Stone or throw in Wong. And then alternatively, I did play it once with Strange, Magneto, and Sabretooth, and I had the Time Stone in that game. And it was pretty good. Playing Brotherhood was fun. Although being that only Magneto in that list can interact with the terrain, it makes it a little less awesome. And so I've changed my list recently. I've taken out another character and MODOK to put in Wolverine and Mystique, and I want to try both healing factor characters with both of their cards, and then I'm going to throw in Mystique to make sure I'm Brotherhood. I'm going to try that next. But that's what I've been playing. And if you guys want to watch, this is the same list we played in our TTS Game 3. So moving on to hobby projects. Because
I played a game.
God
damn it!
It was the MODOK game.
Well, I made a list and I did some shit.
Sure you did. All right, Jeremy, what have you been playing lately?
For Christ's sake! So, I was wondering if I could eat at the table with you guys. I mean,
pull up a chair.
You didn't raise your hand, Jeremy. I didn't know you wanted to talk.
All the cousins are cool and all, but I mean, the chair doesn't even fit me anymore. Fuck. You fucking assholes. Okay.
I still sit at the kiddie table for Thanksgiving.
Oh my God. All right, so
no one talks to me.
The of my concerns, Parker was saying, you need dice fixers. You don't like rolling raw dice. So for me, I hate ending my character's turns with power on them that I would like to use to do things. So I kind of started looking at lists like, okay, who can throw stuff that's not an action? Who can get extra things happening if I spend? And also, I wanted to try Syndicate because it seems like a really cool ability, and I just hadn't done it yet. So Kingpin went in there because he can throw things, and unfortunately, Hela didn't make the cut. I'm sorry, Hela, you don't make the cut. I mean, I love her; she's great, but she doesn't fit. We've got Valkyrie in there because she charges. Basically, if you could charge or throw something, you were in my list. So, and it turned out to be a Syndicate list. I played against Brandon, and I tried to murder as hard as I could, and I came up short. What I should have done was grab the goodies and ran away. But, we learn stuff every game, and that's what I learned that game. But that's what I played.
This was the first game that we tried to prove the theory that Magneto and Strange worked conceptually, and it definitely does. And unfortunately, I think it was just objectively a terrible matchup for you because the whole point of your list is send in badass and erase model, and it doesn't work against Magneto and Strange because there's just too much defense and too many hit points. And so if you can't take anyone down, you just heal them to full. And so it's just really hard to actually get anything to stick to them.
Yeah, it was interesting jumping so far ahead in points and then finding myself bashing my head against what you had and then losing the game.
So Parker, the reason that I say it's not all lost, and I guess I might even leave the pre-ramble in before the episode this week so that people understand where we're coming from a discussion standpoint. Because we've been talking about this for almost an hour now, and it is Jeremy in a random scenario, me trying to play a scenario that lowered the points scored every round. Jeremy scored 6 points on turn 1 and on turn 2. And that puts you in such a hard place with my list, with only having 3 real functional characters. And if Jeremy hadn't delivered the hammers to me by just running at me with hammers, I would have lost that game, not even close. Like, if turn 2 he moved away instead of moving forward, the game ends, he wins. Like, it's not even close. And so, because it's so easy to jump out to a huge lead, that I think that list isn't functionally viable unless your opponent decides to fight you on your terms, which is unfortunately what everyone has tried to do so far. But because it's just kind of like the thing you do. It's like, all right, well, I take some extracts, I go kill the enemy. But in this game, it's like, you can't, and they kill you back. And it's just like watching your stuff die. But yeah, so that's what we've been playing lately. We're going to move on into some other topics now. We've got hobby projects. I think I'm the only one currently working on models because Parker is afraid of glue. He has a phobia. It's very crippling. He doesn't like to talk about it.
I don't like the smell or the taste.
Yeah, especially the taste of super glue. Jeremy is afraid of X-Men. He has a phobia of X-Men and X-Men-like products. And so he is I believe the only person that hasn't picked up of our pre-order of like 12 people who pre-ordered everything for X-Men. He's like the only one that hasn't picked up his stuff.
Well, I have like plastic PTSD at this point. I mean, I sat there and within a matter of like 2 weeks to 3 weeks, put together and painted 22 models. And like, right, I just can't. I just can't.
I just can't even.
It hurt.
Hey, I know what that's like. I assembled quite a few models in my day, and I know what it's like to just not want to look at them anymore. I usually don't get tired of putting models together, though. I will get tired of painting, but it takes a lot for me to get tired of putting stuff together. I think the last time was probably like 2014. I had assembled my entire Convergence of Cirrus army in 3 days. And I don't know if you remember what Privateer Press plastic kits were like, but oh my god, I was so done.
How did
I was
you?
like, I don't want to see another mold line ever again.
Yeah, those were the worst.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Those were bad.
And the Convergence models were the worst of the worst. Like the Trollkin, where it's like the mold line. For anyone who doesn't know, they're basically orcs, and so they're just very round, greenish blue dudes that have no like bodily hair except on the top of their head. They have this like little tuft. But whoever sculpted the model, the mold line runs through the hair, down the side of their head, and then takes a right 90-degree turn across their forehead, and then goes down directly through their eye. And it's just like, who did this? Like, who decided that's where the mold line should be? You people should be lined up and shot.
A masochist.
Like I've never had to clean an eyeball before. Oh my god, I was so mad.
The Bastions.
But anyway, yeah. The Bastions were not great because they were holding these like giant rubber band staves that were like glaives that were just made of rubber.
They're soft plastic.
So
yeah, they're soft plastic models.
The models were amazing. But yeah, it's like those like pre-painted D&D figures plastic. It's super rubbery and it bends and warps really easily. Like leaving them in a 70-degree room, they'll warp. Like it's so annoying. But yeah, anyway, back to this game. So currently I'm working on my Magneto diorama. If you guys have ever looked at my dioramas, I did a Black Order diorama, I did a Web Warriors diorama. Currently working on my Magneto/Brotherhood diorama. And I'm putting more work into this one than the last ones by a landslide. So hopefully it ends up being really cool. I'm about 10% of the way done, and I'm about 40 hours in. So And then eventually I'll have to paint it. So I have a long way to go. So moving on to our next segment, we have From the Forums. This is, again, if you know me, I like to complain about forums. This is actually something interesting that came up. I don't know if you guys are aware, but the current wording on Storm's leadership ability for X-Men Gold is when the active character for the X-Men activates, if they're within range 2 of an allied character, they can place within 1 of it if they're not holding an objective. It has been officially ruled that it does not have to be another character. They can just place within 1 of themselves when they activate for free.
Wait, what?
So process that for a second. All of your models teleport when they activate.
Teleport where?
Within 1.
Oh, they just teleport within range 1.
Or of another character within 2. But the only stipulation is a character within range 2 that is allied. And they are allied to themselves and within range 2 of themselves. So if there is no one within range 2, you can just place range 1. Because you just choose yourself. Now, this obviously makes that a really, really, really strong faction ability.
That's crazy.
Pagani has clarified this was an oversight, and in the FAQ that has been mysteriously delayed, they're going to adjust it to another model within range 2. But until that happens, she's broken. So, good to know, right?
There goes my tournament list.
And to think someone would have asked a bad question, this is a really good question because that's exactly the wording. And so, if you're familiar with War Machine rules, they basically have apparition, which is place yourself when you activate.
Right.
So it's a pretty handy ability. And getting that kind of mobility, it makes it to where a lot of characters that are movement medium or movement long can get to an extract objective with only 1 move instead of 2, which is pretty handy. And so then you could then pick it up and then move away instead of moving twice to get to it. So anyway, that's all I had with From the Forums today. So Parker, do you want to go into Comic Corner? I'd like to do this before we get into crunching more numbers.
Sure. So in honor of the X-Men coming out, and I was crossing my fingers and my toes that we actually find out how the team affiliations work. I have a really big graphic novel series, depending upon which one you buy. It's A versus X, the Avengers versus X-Men miniseries. It was a really big deal in the Marvel Universe a couple of years back. So it would have been 2012, so it was a really big deal. It has one of my favorite guys wrote in it, Jonathan Hickman. I just mentioned him the last time. He was the one who's writing currently, working on Avengers. Powers of X, the one I talked about last episode. Avengers vs. X-Men follows basically the culmination of a storyline in which Scarlet Witch said no more mutants in the House of M series, and the mutant population has been decimated, and finally a new mutant is born, Hope Summers, who's raised by Cable in the future as they've been tracked down, people are after him. Hope comes back as a young woman to the primary timeline, and the Phoenix is coming for her. She is the next Phoenix host, like Jean Grey was before her. When it gets here, they're worried that she's all going to go Dark Phoenix and kill everyone. So for the first time in a long time, basically the Avengers take notice and want to take custody of Hope. Cyclops and the X-Men believe that Hope actually represents literally that, the hope for them, that the Phoenix is going to cause the resurrection of the mutant race, and so they go toe-to-toe. One of my favorite moments in the comic that's just super great is Captain America and Cyclops are standing on a beach on the edge of the island where all the X-Men are living, and they're just having a serious conversation about just there's hey, you need to give Hope over. He's like, no, this is a mutant problem. And he's just like, well, it's not a mutant problem anymore because the whole world's at stake. He goes, okay, well, if we're going to talk about problems that we want to stick our necks into, it's like, where were you when this atrocity and this atrocity and this atrocity? And Captain America's like, well, I was trying to, give you the space that I thought that you needed. We'll talk about this some other time. And then, of course, it all blows up into violence. And you see a lot of, fights that you want to see, like Iron Man versus Magneto and Colossus versus the Hulk and Thor versus Storm, and all kind of cool fights that you never see, because generally speaking in the Marvel Universe, they keep the Avengers and the X-Men at two separate tables, and they very rarely interact except for folks who cross over like Wolverine and Beast, who show up in Avengers title, but very rarely do Avengers walk around in the X-Mansion. It just doesn't happen. So this was a pretty cool interaction with the two factions. It's a huge series. If you buy the main graphic novel A versus X, you get it's almost like 30 individual issues or something. It's nonsensically big. It's a little expensive if you want to buy the omnibus, but you can also get it in just the mini series, where it talks about the primary story of how the Phoenix eventually gets to Earth, what happens to the Phoenix once it gets there, and how the Avengers and the X-Men deal with the presence of the new Phoenix. So super cool series, and also makes perfect sense for a game like Marvel Crisis Protocol, because we're all about heroes being able to fight heroes, and what's a good excuse for that? And A versus X really has no supervillains in it. It's all just heroes fighting other heroes over a moral quandary. So it's good stuff.
I have a question.
What's your question?
You said Iron Man fights Magneto.
Mm-hmm. It's one of my favorite.
That was a joke, right?
No, it's one of my favorite things. It has a wonderful caption. They say, "The Master of Magnetism versus a man in a metal suit. If you thought this was no contest, you don't know Tony Stark." And then, of course, Tony has plans, right? Tony's got plans and plans and plans, and it's a pretty cool fight. He realizes very quickly he's out of his league.
Well, hopefully.
He realizes quickly he's out of his league, but Magneto makes a realization during the fight and basically gives up the fight to Iron Man. He relents because of something he learns during the fight. It's cool. I don't want to spoil it, because what he learns during the fight, of course, is key to the plot, and you guys can check it out yourself. But yeah, during the fight, at one point, Tony Stark siphons electromagnetic energy from the planet Jupiter to try to, basically duel with Magneto one-on-one. So it's a single mutant guy versus the electromagnetic field of all of Jupiter, and that is actually a fight, as it turns out, because Magneto is that strong. So I love that idea is in order to get enough electromagnetic force to deal with Magneto's powers, you have to basically achieve Jupiter strength. That's what you have to do. Super cool concept.
I assume that means that Jupiter is much higher in magnetic fields than Earth, right?
Insanely, yeah.
So much larger.
By incredible exponential orders of magnitude larger, yes. Also by the ridiculous amount of friction generated by their storms. The storms that are constantly generating across the surface. Yeah. It's an enormous amount of electromagnetic power. Magneto's coolest moments in comics are all the ones where they get into the science of electromagnetism and what it really means. When he's just picking up metal stuff and throwing it around, it's kind of cool looking visually, but when they've applied hard sci-fi to what it really means, that if you could manipulate electromagnetism, if that's what you could do, the actual limit, the ceiling of that, is kind of staggering. You're talking about a fundamental force of the universe, right? So complete control over that in a vicinity around you is a kind of insane power, and that's the reason why he's always been considered an Omega mutant.
It's basically the manipulation of electrons, right?
The manipulative of electrons, yes, but also it'd be the manipulation of the electromagnetic spectrum, as well as the way particles move, because all particles can be ionized, right? So the ionization of particles, some are more easy to ionize than others, but he could do it, right, because he has control over it all. To say nothing of the fact that things that are ferrous, right? Anything containing, iron or nickel, cadmium, these kind of things that respond very well to electromagnetic forces, he just has complete control over. At the molecular level, he can do whatever he wants, which is super cool. One of my favorite fights that ever happened is Magneto versus Proteus, which is the son of Moira McTaggart, the mutant son of Moira McTaggart, and I can't remember who was the father. Was it Professor X? Maybe it was. Now I'm blanking. But Proteus is a mutant that exists only in the electromagnetic spectrum. He doesn't have a physical body, and his power set's insane because he can rework reality.
Oh yeah, he's actually in the cartoon now. I remember it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the professor's kid.
Yeah, I think I know Moira McTaggart is his mom. but I can't. In some comics, Professor X is the dad. I think in others he's not, depending on like the universe he comes from. But oh no. So apparently the primary universe, it's Joseph McTaggart, just a politician, is his dad, just some guy. But in the issue that I love, Magneto fights Proteus, and because he's made of electromagnetism, all Magneto needs is just time, and so he just buys time during the whole fight, trying to understand what Proteus is made of. Because I love the idea that if Magneto controls electromagnetism, that he must have some sort of sense, right? Like a sensory organ that can actually read electromagnetism, so we can actually more or less smell or feel the way different electromagnetic fields work. So all he needed was like close contact with Proteus for a while for him to just figure Proteus out and basically just gain control of him, because once he figured out how Proteus's electromagnetism, like his essence, worked, he could just manipulate him, because that's what he does. So yeah, during the fight with Iron Man in A versus X, and when Iron Man's manipulating Jupiter's energy, Magneto immediately goes, I've tasted this before, this is Jupiter. Like he recognizes which electromagnetic field it is. And it makes sense, right? If you had complete control over electromagnetism, you'd have to be able to sense it somehow, so you'd also be able to detect differences. Magneto is super cool. Super cool character.
All right. Well, I guess that's going to end Comic Corner for us.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're going to move into crunching the numbers once again. So anyone who listened to last week's episode knows that we did a dive into the defensive stats in the game. And so this week we've done kind of the same thing, but I did what Jeremy wanted.
Thank you.
Which was apply hit points and point cost into the equation. So we've come up with some interesting math here that I've been able to coerce out of the numbers. I played around with a few different formulas. There's basically the unweighted version where it factors hit points and defense dice and point cost into a standard formula, and it was basically heavily weighted towards hit points, and I thought that wasn't really fair based on what I was trying to do, and so I weighted defensive stats and point costs much more heavily than hit points, because obviously anyone can look at a card and go, oh well, this character has so many hit points, they're this hard to kill. And so that's not really representative of what I wanted to see, which was the magnitude of applying all of it together. And so I came up with the final defensive rating on a character, which ranges from about 20 to 40 roughly. And that's of the characters currently in the game. So we have... I don't want to just go through and read off all the characters and their stats, obviously, because that'd be really boring. But I'm going to try and go through some of the more intuitive things that we found. For instance... when we went through just the initial formula without the weighted numbers, we had... I'm going to sort this real quick. So the characters at the top of the spectrum were Hulk and Thanos, which makes a lot of sense if you think about the concept of like how hard they are to kill in one activation. But that doesn't weight the numbers properly based on how many attacks you're going to be getting hit with throughout a game. The interesting thing is Rocket Raccoon is always at the bottom. He is always the worst character, basically, regardless of the way you rate the numbers, which I think is fair. But he's not, like, noticeably behind the pack. So on the unweighted version, him and Okoye are the bottom two. Rocket's an 11 out of 11 to 21 is the spectrum. And so Rocket's the 11, and Okoye is a 14. So the next lowest is a 14. That's a pretty big jump. Because there's about 60 characters in the game at this point, because I've added in the X-Men and the Brotherhood. And then the highest two characters are tied at 21 with Hulk and Thanos. Well, anyone who's played the game a lot knows that Hulk is not actually hard to kill. He's just time-consuming to kill, right? He has very little defense, and it's all just bulk hit points. So he's very hard to kill with a single attack, basically impossible to kill with a single attack. As where Thanos is much more vulnerable to high spikes, but is very resilient to long-term small attacks. And so if we move this around to the weighted numbers, which I think are a lot more true to what I was looking for, which is say, like, this character is actually difficult to kill and is highly defensive. Rocket Raccoon is the worst character, And Groot is actually the highest character in the game at efficiency rating, because at a 3-point cost with 14 hit points, and he has a total defensive stat rating of 9, which means he's about average. But 14 hit points for 3 points is unparalleled. No one else has that kind of survivability without having some kind of huge negative in their stat line. Actually, just no one else has 14 hit points for 3 points. Like, that's just true. So the next highest character is Dr. Octopus, which probably a lot of people are going to be surprised at. But he's got 11 hit points for 3 points, and he's got 4-3-4, which is the second best defensive stat line in the game. Like, he's got an 11-point stat line. The only one higher is Hela with 12. And he has more hit points than Hela and costs less. And so that's why he's at the top of the spectrum. The next thing we'll notice is the next group of characters is Nebula, Toad, and Black Widow are the next 3, which are all 2-point characters that are reasonable defensive stats. And so what this is basically telling us is, for efficiency, the best thing you can do to not be killed is take lots of cheap characters, which anyone who's played the game knows is true. Like, killing 4 2-pointers is a lot harder than killing like 2 4-pointers, right? Like, the amount of attacks you need to bring them down is actually harder to do in a shorter amount of time. Like, if you have 1 turn to kill 2 people, that's doable. 1 turn to kill 4 people is much harder. Like, you need a lot more luck to come through for you. A little bit of confirmation bias is the Ebony Maw is the second worst character in the game for defensive value at 22, 1 point higher than Rocket. And it's a 5-point character.
You were excited to see that, huh?
So he could have been so good. Could have been so good.
Could have been a contender.
Yeah, so one important thing to note, this does not take into account special rules or superpowers or anything like that. Like damage reduction, the ability to, like, Vibranium Shield on Captain America, all of this is before that. So you'll have to apply superpowers and special rules on top of this. So the efficiency rating is based on just raw numbers. So from 21 to 42, a lot of the characters, 41 of them fall within the normal standard deviation of plus or minus the standard amount. There are 6 characters, 1 standard deviation better. Those characters are Green Goblin on the healthy side. So Green Goblin's really weird. I basically split him up into 2 2-point characters because his stats are so weird. Because his defensive stats change on the front and the back. I didn't know how else to deal with it.
You're just so
And so
weird.
basically, healthy Green Goblin is a 2-point character, and injured Green Goblin is a 2-point character. And it's the only way to do it while being fair. He actually falls about average. Because he doesn't have exceptional defensive stats. He's just got good defensive stats. And he's 4 points. So the standard deviation above average is Green Goblin on the front side, Black Dwarf, Kingpin, and then Black Widow, Toad, and Nebula that we already talked about. And so those are the characters that are noticeably harder to kill than their average counterpart. The characters below average, there's only 10 of them. I'll run through them real quick. Rocket is the lowest, obviously. Ebony Maw, MODOK, Gamora, Peter Parker, Hulk, Okoye, Hawkeye, Vision, and Loki are all the only ones outside of the standard deviation in the game. And so everyone else fits within the normal parameters, which means Magneto, even with his 3/3 and those 2 primary stats, so before you apply the ability to roll 6 defense dice, he's still about average in the game if you never activate that power. And that's including the fact that he costs 6 points. Thanos is just above him at 28.3, and Magneto's 28 even. Now, that obviously doesn't take into account Thanos' damage reduction, which is pretty handy. So I do want to publish this on our page at some point, and so I need to figure out a good way to dump these stats into a more readable format. I've also done the same progression for individual stats. And so if you take all 3 stats added together, you can actually sort them by who's good against what. And so, for example, like we always talk about, energy is the worst defensive stat. And so if we sort this by column L, we'll see who's the best at defending against energy. And so the weird thing that we've determined is actually Nebula is the best character at defending against energy for the point cost because she's only 2 points. And so energy attacks, generally speaking, she's going to survive the longest for the point cost. But obviously, being a 2-point character, that's kind of a little unfair. So Storm becomes quickly the next best because she is a 4 energy defense for 3 points with a decent amount of hit points at 10. And so she's actually rated a 13.5, and the highest rating in this category is only a 13.5. So Storm's obviously great because she's a 4 energy defense on a 3-point character. It's pretty rare. Then we've got Toad, another 2-point character. Ronan the Accuser, because he's got so many hit points, is actually pretty good against energy. Ebony Maw is the worst in the game at physical and energy, obviously, because it's not taking into account the ability for him to use his Mystic Defense.
Also, he's a total tool.
Yeah, he's a total piece of shit. We're just going to shit on him until the end of time, unfortunately.
He's so bad.
He's not even that bad.
You don't think he's so bad?
Costing 5 points, I think, was a mistake. I think he should cost 4 points.
Mm-hmm.
He'd be fine at 4 points.
I think it's some of his
5 points is just too much.
Some of his abilities, I think, are they're too scary looking to put him up that high. But he really should be not that high.
Magneto is the perfect example. The reason Magneto is scary is because he really gets almost 10 power a turn. He starts with 3. And his attacks average generate 3.5 because he hits so hard. So it's just okay, well, you basically have 10 power, and then you actually do stuff with your 10 power.
Mm-hmm.
Ebony Maw doesn't generate enough power to actually be scary. Jeremy, do you have any questions about any of the characters?
No, I looked at them.
Do you not find this very interesting? Okay.
It's interesting. It's just a lot of numbers. You have a lot of information there. You have a lot of information. Actually, I was trying to think. Ebony Maw is like Coldplay. You're like, oh no,
What?
You
just can't. Oh no, yeah, you just gotta hate on him. It's not gonna stop. Nickelback. That's who he is.
He is Nickelback. Yeah. I was gonna say Coldplay. I don't know how hard. I know that some people hate on Coldplay, but he's Creed. He's Nickelback.
Yeah, he's Nickelback. You just gotta hate him.
He's U2.
Oh,
he's U2.
Oh.
People want to like him, but it's impossible. All right, so one thing I did kind of notice, you know how we were talking about initially that the Spider Foes were a weird faction because they all come in separate boxes. There's no dual box for the Spider Foes.
Mm-hmm.
Because Doc Ock comes in the core box, Green Goblin and Venom are both solo boxes, and then we're waiting on... Oh, then Kingpin's a solo box as well. We're waiting on Carnage and Mysterio still. But another weird thing is the majority of characters in Spider Foes have 7 hit points on the front.
Huh.
That's weird.
Isn't that kind of weird? That sounds odd until you actually look at it. And here, let me sort this real quick and I'll show you. There are only 7 characters in the game that have 7 hit points on their healthy side. And of those characters, we've got Kingpin, Green Goblin, and Venom. So 3 of those are all in Spider Foes. That's a really weird trend.
Huh.
And we don't know that Carnage isn't going to have 7. I would probably expect him to have less than Venom, but we don't know that's going to be true. It's very possible that he shows up with 7 hit points too. And so it's just odd to me.
That is kooky.
Yeah, it's just a really weird trend. Let's see. Is there any other weird trends? I kind of wish I had done this by factions, and I would see even more of those little trend things.
One of the things that we pointed out as soon as you made them is it's funny that Rocket and Groot, which is the combo, right? The classic combo is
right.
Is for the points the most efficient, and for the points the least efficient model in the game. I wonder, it makes sense that they did that from a balancing standpoint, but I wonder how much they knew that exactly going into it. It makes you wonder.
Yeah, they're obviously intended to be very hammer and anvil, but the fact that they nailed it so hard on the head.
Yeah,
because Groot is a full 1.5 clear on the spectrum. The spectrum's only 20 points. There's 60 characters on the spectrum, so there should be roughly 3 characters per point. But Groot's a full 1.7 clear of the next best character, and Rocket is a full 1 point clear of the next highest character. So they're not only far on the ends of the spectrum, they're noticeably above average away from their next closest. That's really strange to me.
It's fascinating.
You think
But perfect.
for point, what'll be interesting is when you do the offensive capability, it'll be the exact opposite. Rocket will be the most offense per point.
Oh no, right? I mean, obviously, yeah. Well, we say that, but like Groot has like a 7 or an 8 die attack. Like he hits pretty hard.
That auto staggers as well.
It's just a lot like Captain America, where he doesn't get because of his requirements for providing support and defense. He doesn't end up being in position to make attacks very often, and a lot of his actions end up being to move to maintain his defense. So there are, let's see, 11 characters that are exactly a 30, which is in the middle of the spectrum. And so we've got Mystique, Bullseye, Ghost Spider, Proxima Midnight, Shuri, Miles, Cyclops, Black Panther, Red Skull, Hela, and Captain Marvel are all dead even middle of the pack. And so obviously, again, without special rules taken into account, because that's impossible to like put a math number next to. But for the most part, a lot of these characters... So Proxima Midnight has damage reduction, Miles has spider senses, Black Panther has a lot of defensive rules. Hela has her corpses, and then Captain Marvel has the bonus versus energy. But for the most part, a lot of those characters, it's just odd that we hit a nice chunk. 1/6 of them are dead even in the middle, which is fun.
Well, it does present like a really nice bell curve in general. So with the exception of the few outliers that are sticking out the top and the bottom, here's an interesting little quandary though. I know we only have our play group. It's funny that no one I guess has caught on to the fact that Doctor Strange. I mean, I think we said it in the last podcast, which is Doctor Octopus actually has a very high stat block. It's funny that I haven't seen anybody trying to take advantage of that, like around here. Just like try Math Hammer to see if they could make the absolute best, point cost. I know we're doing that here, and maybe we're the first people to get here, but I think it's funny that I haven't seen anyone try this yet.
I think that part of the reason is what Jeremy had pointed out on previous podcast. Specifically when we were talking about Black Dwarf, I think it was. They're just non-interactive characters. They just they activate, they take 2 actions, they're done. That's it. They don't do anything interesting. They roll dice. They don't modify their dice. It's just like whatever happens, happens. And so they're not very intellectually interesting, and they're very boring. And so I think that's why they end up there. And I think a lot of the characters on the high end of the defensive spectrum end up being like that. Because we've got Black Dwarf, Kingpin, Black Widow. Black Widow has a lot of interactions, but she's not aggressive. She tends to be very defensive and just sit back and not do anything. Doc Ock and Groot. All these characters kind of hang out and just stand around, and their job is to just not die. So that is what it is, but I think that's why he doesn't get played very much. But I remember when you were building your list before you switched away from Spider Foes back to Cabal, it was very easy to talk you into it because all I had to do is point out he has really good stats, and so it was very easy to drop him in the list. And then you play him, and you're like, well, I don't know what to do with him. He just kind of is there.
Mm-hmm.
As we're like Zemo, you play Zemo once, you're like, this guy's awesome. He does everything. And he moves, he attacks, he moves again. He rerolls dice, he counterattacks, he charges. He does everything. So it's the opposite. It's very uninteractive character.
And furthermore, even his coolest thing, which is his coolest thing is I stand still and shoot people from where I'm at right now. That's his coolest thing he does, which again is even uninspiring. The most interesting thing he does is not really that exciting to do. So yeah, talk about Doc Ock, not Zemo. He's not a very dynamic character.
The best thing about Dr. Octopus is that all of his attacks are a high range, even his melee attacks are range 3. So he doesn't need to get as close as you would expect to interact with the board. And his attacks are dangerous. They're just inconsistent because he doesn't have mods.
Mm-hmm. Gotta get them mods.
Well, he has the thing that kind of you're talking about there where without any sort of interesting rule, without anything at all, just on the paper, the numbers, he seems great. But everybody else has other things that help them stay alive, or a partner, or something. Whereas basically, you can one-shot Dr. Octopus all the time. it's very easy.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's very easy to get that 3-pointer off the board when you need him off the board. And that's always a problem, too.
I mean, you say that till Hulk comes in and rolls 3 out of 8 dice for damage, and you're like, oh.
Hey, shit happens, you know.
Take 2.
Yeah. It happens, but for the most part, a model that just does 2 actions and doesn't have any power to actually use his throw because he won't. Yeah, you want him to be great. He just
Yeah, I think Dr. Octopus is definitely like he takes a huge advantage from the raw stats, but not having any superpowers to back it up is pretty harsh. Like even Nebula has a heal.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's definitely like the outlier because like even Toad has a lot of repositioning abilities to get out of attack range. Obviously, Kingpin has damage reduction. So like he's definitely, I think, the outlier, but it's hard to argue with raw numbers. Like for 3 points, I think the Spider Foes are just really underestimated on how tough they are because of like we just pointed out how many hit points their freaking faction has. Like it is going to be hard to get them off the table.
Yeah.
I'm just taking a look here to see if there's another trend of faction that exists in the high or the low spectrum. I kind of expected Guardians of the Galaxy to have a lot of low defense characters, but honestly, the majority of them are in the middle to upper tier. It's just Rocket and Gamora which are behind the curve. Gamora because she's just she's 10 hit points with a total defense of 9, which is just like game average for 4 points, which is just kind of meh. I really thought she should have some kind of like extra defense or more than 10 hit points at least.
Yeah, Gamora is one of the most... I love Gamora, and she's supposed to be such a cool character. And she does hit like a truck. Like when you look at her attack stats... She
does hit like a truck.
Yeah. When you look at her attack stats, you're like, what? How many dice does she roll? That's crazy. And then you play with her, and you go, oh, that's why she'd roll so many dice. Because...
Explained.
Yeah. Because the actual consistency of it is so low because she's such a paper tiger.
I think Gamora needs exactly one thing to make her crazy off the chart. Make her 3 points instead of fucking 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, she can't be 3 points.
I know, but she sits right there, man. At 3 points, you'd be like, "Ooh, Valkyrie. Ooh, hold on. Wait, let's put Gamora instead."
You can definitely see they were worried about making her too good, I think was the problem.
Yeah,
like
she
they were
sits
really
right
like,
on the edge.
what if we put Drax and Rocket and Gamora in one list and they all do just crazy damage? Like, they have to have a way to get rid of these characters. And so Drax got a lot more of the isn't broken love, and I don't know how, because that guy is crazy good. Without his damage reduction, Drax is above the curve on defense. And he's a 3/3/2 model because he's got so many fucking hit points. With his damage reduction, he'd probably be like well above the rest of the curve.
One thing you'll notice, talking about Guardians, I mean, all of their stats are, where they're at, but with their ability to get all the rerolls from from Peter. Winging it. Yeah, with that and all of their abilities, one thing about Guardians is they all punch above their weight. You will, on every one of them will get work done, and they will collect a 4-point model with a 3-point model every time.
Yeah, their faction ability is actually just really efficient models. It's not the winging it tokens. It's just that their models are better than they should be, except for Gamora.
Yeah, it's true.
She just dies so fast. I don't know what she's supposed to do.
Yeah,
like I don't know how you deliver her.
I don't know.
Because if you put her down, why would you ever attack Drax or Ronan or Groot instead of her? Like, she draws every attack on the board because she just has to die.
Yep.
I mean, there's models that hit as hard or almost as hard as her, but they have charge on them, and they don't get there. Like, like she's slower than them.
Well, she does have pounce, which helps. But yeah, she's still pretty slow.
Here's the thing. She has speed long and pounce. Like, she will actually get there and get to do one attack, and that will hurt. But I don't. She has such a glass jaw. Like, and also she's got a huge target on her face. She's definitely like, oh, please, you got to kill Gamora. She's just going to eat you, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think she's supposed to be like a flank fighter. Like she's like Zemo. She's supposed to be on the edge, not in the middle. She can't survive against multiple attackers, but she can do really well in a one-on-one. Because even if she only gets the one attack, she can move long, throw herself at you, do a couple damage, and then attack you and probably finish you off. But she can't take the attacks back, right? She can maybe survive one person's activation, but she's not going to survive two. And so I think she's meant to be like your flank edge piece, but you already have Nebula for that. So it's just like, why? Like, it just seems like excessive.
How many characters have throw their body at you? Like, could you make like a WWE?
Just her and Black Panther.
Her and Black Panther and Wolverine and Sabretooth's card. Those are the ways to do it.
True, yeah. Weapon X program.
Yeah.
Just wondering.
I'm trying to think now what the percentage of cards that have X in the title are for the X-Men.
They better have them all, like
Is
Blood
it all
Angels.
of them?
It's going to be like Blood.
Uncanny X-Men. To me, my X-Men is Children of the Atom doesn't. That's the only one from the set that doesn't have X in the title.
Wasted opportunity.
Somebody
it's got to be like
it's got
to be like Blood Angels, where everything has the word blood in it.
My sanguineous bolt guns that fire blood shard rounds, carried by my sanguinary guard wearing their angelic blood plate of doom.
Yes.
Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, it's like, who named these people? It's like Jeff did. And everybody looks and he's just in a corner, like drooling on himself. Like, oh, that makes sense. My blood strike missile fired from my blood strike missile blood launcher of blood. God, dude, calm down. You need to calm the fuck down.
The X Factor, X Force, X. Yeah.
So I've gone through the characters that we've already rated defensively and added their defensive rating. This is the rating that goes from 21 to 42 of the current models. It's about 20 to 40 on average. So we've got Black Dwarf. We rated a 7 out of 10 on defense, has a rating of 35, which sounds about in line. Corvus Glaive is a 6, and he got a 27. So it sounds like he's a little ahead of the curve, but obviously having damage reduction, that helps. I think we've rated him for having the Reality Stone as well. Ebony Maw is a 22 out of 20 to 40, and we gave him a 2, so that sounds like we nailed that one. Might have even needed to go down a little bit. Ghost Spider got a 3 out of 10, and is a 30. So it sounds like we rated her a little low, and that's probably because we weren't taking into account that she's so cheap. Hela got a 7, and she's a 30, but she's got the ability to resurrect, so that sounds about right. Loki got a 7, and is a 25 out of 20 to 40. So, but obviously that's not accounting for Trickster or I Am a God or his ability to deny crits. So obviously pretty good. Proxima is a 5, and she got a 30, so it sounds like we got that dead right.
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man Peter Parker got a 22.5, but that's before Spider Senses or Great Responsibility, and we rated him a 5 out of 10, so that sounds about right. Spider-Man Miles got a 6, and he scored a 30 on the rating, so we probably actually rated him low, because with Spider Senses, Great Responsibility, and Stealth, he probably should be a 7. Thanos, 28.3, but we gave him a 10, but obviously having auto damage reduction is pretty big, so that kind of makes sense. Then we have Thor, Prince of Asgard, got a 6 out of 10, and he's rated a 30.8, so that sounds about right. Valkyrie got a 3, and she got a 33 on the rating, so maybe we were a little harsh on her.
She got a 33?
Yeah, well, she's 11 hit points for 3 points, and she's got average defensive stats. Like, for 3 points, there's not a lot of... Like, she's ahead of the curve for 3 points, because most 3-point characters only have 10 hit points. And so I don't know if we properly rated her. We might have been a little harsh. And obviously, she makes a lot of lists around Kansas City. I don't know about everybody else, but she is in... Like, if you ever need a 3-point beater, she is the first person people reach for. Like, she's played in Cabal, she's played in Web Warriors, she's played in freaking... Spider Foes. Like, she's played in everything around here, so
she's the beater of ass.
All pretty much yeah, she is the 3-point beater that people grab, so like it makes sense. I think we just underrate how hard to kill she is. And then Venom got a 6, and he's a 29.3, but this is obviously before his ability to heal, so, and to attack you mid activation and heal. So yeah, that's obviously takes that into account. So yeah, I think for the most part we've been pretty in line with our ratings. I know the crunching the numbers isn't super intellectual with me just reading numbers to people. So we probably won't do a huge amount of these number crunches going forward, at least on like big things like this. We might do a little bit more of like rating the efficiency of powers against each other. And so this is what it is for now. Do you guys have any more questions about this matrix that I've come up with?
Well, it seems like to sum up a couple things, if it's a 3-point model or a 2-point model, you're getting you get a lot for it. That's causing your curve to really shift on some of those.
Sure.
Because Valkyrie she's decent, and then you go, oh wait, she has an extra hit point and she's 3 points. That is premium. What did you notice that's like are the ones that are on the top of the curve the expected ones? I mean, I know that you said Groot was like kind of weird. You're like,
right.
Well, that's weird.
Well, actually, I think Groot is correct because for 3 points, for points spent per survivability. So if you like every time you spend a point, you expect noticeably more survivability. The 3 points you spend on Groot is better than like per point than anything else you spend in the game. Because for 14 hit points, and that's before special powers, but the fact that like if you leave him at 1, he's just going to heal to full is so incredibly frustrating. I don't know if you guys have played against Groot, but I've played against Groot, and that guy is fucking annoying. He is impossible to kill. It takes so much effort to get rid of him. And so there's the confirmation bias. When I first did the unweighted math, where it was just like, we're just going to add it up and then take away the point cost, having Hulk near the top immediately told me that was not a proper way to do it. Landing with Groot at the top and Hulk near the bottom told me a lot more about how this works. I was a little surprised that Thanos was so low, because Thanos comes in a little under average at 27.5, but he has... Oh, sorry, it's a 28 even. He has so many special rules that end up keeping him alive because of his flat damage reduction. He can take the Reality Stone, and those are really the things that keep him alive, and the formula doesn't take that into account. And so I think that the weighted numbers are actually very accurate, and obviously you need to apply their special rules to it. So like Captain America comes in dead even in the middle at 30. And so if you apply I can do this all day and Vibranium Shield to that, then yeah, he would jump to like the top of the list. And so I think we're pretty good right here. And so I'm just going to write up a quick formula. So if we wanted to not take point cost into account and just determine who the hardest to kill character was before special rules. And let me just apply this to the whole sheet. And this is basically just defensive numbers times hit points. And so the best in the game is Thanos. And then the worst in the game is Surprise Rocket Raccoon. So this formula goes from 42 to 170 because it isn't reduced by the point cost at all. But other than that, it's the same as the weighted formula. So 170 is Thanos and 168 is Magneto, which actually kind of makes sense. And then just behind him at 154 is Thor, then Ghost Rider, then Kingpin, then Black Dwarf, then Hulk, then Ronan, then Doctor Strange, then Groot. So that sounds about right. The worst of the list is Rocket, Wong, Hawkeye, Okoye, Black Widow, Nebula, Toad, Ant-Man. Yeah, so all the characters are really squishy.
That's interesting. So something to take into account for new players when you're learning the game, those ones that you just said, like that have all the hit points and kind of have better stats, just kind of a raw value, like they might be easier and last a bit longer for your new players. Just a thought, because they're not, without using all their shenanigans, you know.
Well, I think if anything, what the spreadsheet has told us for the most part is that if you want a really forgiving list, play cheap characters, because the dazed mechanic is going to save you the majority of the time. And so if you would otherwise like lose games because your characters end up getting killed, it won't necessarily happen nearly as often if... Hold on, I'm about to mess up my spreadsheet. Sorry. I'm not used to this new formula. But the value of having multiple health bars is so great, because if you played this game, you know dice spikes are going to happen, and you're going to take a bunch of damage from a random attack that probably shouldn't hurt you. Like, someone will roll in with 5 dice and do like 6 damage and you'll blank out and you'll just die.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that you have more characters to absorb that random chance is going to more than likely protect you from that stuff, because they're going to have to do it multiple times to really make you pay for it. As where if they're playing, I know it's happened to me playing Black Order, even like a 9-point Thanos just gets punched by somebody and they just roll crazy and you roll bad and you take like 6 damage from one attack. And it probably shouldn't happen, but like 1 in 1,000 rolls. But when it happens, it changes the game. So you need to be able to adjust to that. And so rather than getting upset because it was unlucky, you need to have like a plan in place. And so be that either you're taking cards like Recalibration Matrix or like Odin's Blessing that can normalize the dice math, just having more character health bars will probably help you.
That's true. I agree.
And so, yeah, like Toad, Nebula, Black Widow being 3 of the top 5 most defensive characters in the game before special rules, I think says a lot about the difficulty to kill like characters like that, which is part of the strength of Guardians. Like, not only do their characters punch above their weight class, but just killing 6 people is hard. Like, it takes a long time. Like, even with one-shotting everyone per attack, that's 12 attacks to kill their team at like 18 points. Like, well, that's 3 rounds of activations for you to just kill their fucking people.
And I mean, we knew that in some ways because of playing against Wakanda when everyone, that was the first one that kind of threw the wide net with a bunch of cheaper characters and had like, okay, a bunch of life bars. Oh shit, how's this going to work? Is this going to break the game? So we kind of saw that happen initially, and now there's so many more cheap characters where we can kind of pull it off how you want. It doesn't have to be Wakanda anymore.
Yeah, that's why I was always worried about like the 10 2-point characters list ever happening. Because like that would just be a nightmare. Like even if you only get 18 points, they still have 9 characters. You're like, well, I have 4. Like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? Like, I just don't have enough attacks to kill them.
Dogpiled.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something to be said about the fact that, and that's something I have to wrap my brain around still. This game, I'm still new enough at it for sure that I don't think about the number of times my characters can be dazed as a part of my defensive stat for like the list. Like the number of times my characters can be dazed is an actual very strong, because functionally, every character in the game says at a certain point I am immune to damage. You're like, wow, that's really strong. So how much can I make that happen? Well, you would just add more characters in, right? Because oftentimes
I know that HeroClix had built into their game. There was a mechanic basically that says, because in the game you have a health dial is part of like the whole point of the clicks is that you have a clicky dial on your base, and there was special powers that said like when you get to this dial, stop taking damage. Like when you turn to this point, stop. And that was like a special rule a lot of characters had, which is basically like prevented overflow damage. And so this is a similar mechanic to that. And like obviously, if Hulk was like dazed at 10 and had 10 and 10 instead of 20 on the front, he would be a lot stronger because you couldn't just eliminate him in one turn. And I know it's really hard to do, but like the fact that you can take like 5 damage and then go in with Hulk and never get to activate him again is very punishing. And which is why I think Hulk is a bad character. It's because he's just too vulnerable to dice spikes. Like if you have like Thanos with the Time Stone, just punch him 3 times. Well, that's like 12 damage. Like he's probably just dead. Like, because all the other damage he's taken throughout the game. Like you can have Corvus Glaive kill him in 1 activation. Like 20-0 dead if he gets hot dice. Like, I just don't know how you're supposed to recover from that.
Right. I think it's how many times have I had to tell someone, no, you only got 2 power for this because you only did 2 damage to dazed, right? Like, oh, I did 5. Like, cool, you did 5, but you actually, only did 1. So functionally, you rolled all the dice, you bought the effects, you paid for them in points, but you never actually did that damage. It's one of the kind of strange, if you want to look at like the number of dice you get to roll in the game, the number of opportunities for success, when you have to roll on somebody who only has 1 hit point and then they're dazed, you functionally lose out on a huge bit of efficiency. That's interesting. That's one of the reasons why maybe, just maybe, Brandon, maybe Bullseye is okay. Maybe Bullseye is
I
okay.
hate you.
Well, the idea is he brings that efficiency back down, right? Because you don't care. But the problem is it doesn't actually bring it down because you still have to cost an action. It'd be better if it was more like Punisher, because Punisher just says take 2 damage, right? That's actually a really high.
Oh, if you mean like punishing people that end up at 1 hit point, yes, absolutely. That's the only thing he's good for.
Right.
Is punishing. He basically is like the card Cruelty, which conveniently he's on, where if you leave someone alive after an attack, you can play Cruelty and you get an extra attack against them. That's all Bullseye is. Is Bullseye says, oh, you have 1 or 2 hit points, you're dead. I just said it, you're dead, we're moving on. And like you just stop messing with it. Until you run up against someone like Kingpin, who just like says, no, I don't take damage. You're like, oh, well, I guess I'm worthless then. And you're like, yep, you're worthless, goodbye. It's like, he shuts the door on him. I can't wait till he plays against Thanos. He's like, I did 0. Take 1. You're like, no thanks. Damn it. Yeah, I don't like Bullseye from like an aesthetic point, so I just make fun of him. He's probably fine. He just doesn't do enough damage for my liking. Like, the fact that Hawkeye exists, I think, mostly invalidates Bullseye unless you really need to make faction. And there's so many criminals and Cabal members already that I find it unlikely that you're not in faction. So it just seems like overkill to me, unless you like the aesthetic, and then that's fine. Like, if you're playing characters because you think they're cool, keep doing that, because that's always fun.
Or you could double down on the whole shoot and stick and move thing and play them both. Play Hawkeye and Bullseye if you really wanted to. I don't know if
Sure.
I still wonder if that's good. I haven't tried it yet to just play an army of nothing but stick and movers. I do not know if it works, but it seems interesting.
Yeah, the real question is just that if you can get enough of the extracts to make it work.
Right.
Because I think you can hold enough of the secures. I just think the question is just that. Because you basically just end up spreading out and you force your opponent to kind of like take a lot of one-on-one fights, in which case the more mobile person is advantaged.
Mm-hmm.
Or they have to like choose a side and then you just punish them with the characters they didn't choose and you run away at the characters they did choose to attack. And so you just keep rotating and attacking them the whole time because you're all ranged. I do that a lot with people with my Web Warriors list. I'll try and convince them. I'll split my force into 2 groups. They'll choose one to attack, and then they just flee, and the other ones attack them while they're trying to chase them down. Why is Ebony Moss so bad? Parker, can you tell me?
I mean, in the comic books, actually, I don't even know if he has telekinetic powers in the comic books. Like, that whole power set is just from the movies. He doesn't.
What?
He doesn't have telekinesis in the comic books that I know of. In the comic books, he has
What?
like.
You're crazy.
No, in the comic books, he has like telepathic powers where he like basically he convinces people that of things. Like mind worms. Basically, is what he makes. He makes like a mind worm.
I don't believe you.
But
he really doesn't have telekinesis in the comics. I think you're crazy.
In the original one,
you were wrong about the Inhumans thing last week. So I don't believe you.
I'm gonna go look. I'm looking right now. I'm gonna find out. I'm not gonna.
Well, his main power it was the talking. Yeah, like he was a convincer. He was the pour honey in your ear and you do anything kind of guy. Like that was his main power.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, yep. He does have telekinesis apparently also. Oh my gosh.
Is it like Jean Grey though, where she's not really great at telekinesis? She just can do telekinesis.
I think that's kind of the point. Yeah. Because Jean Grey's super thing is telepathy, right? That's how she's an Omega Mutant.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a persuasive voice. He's a whisperer, supernatural persuasion.
I mean, he has charm person basically.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. He has charm. Yeah, charm person.
Level 2 bard on the team.
Uh-huh.
Got it.
Yeah.
Oh, and Thanos chose him. All right, he's the children of Thanos. Something.
Yeah, in the comics, the Herald, like the guy who does all the talking, to announce Thanos is always Corvus Glaive. Corvus Glaive is kind of the lieutenant character in a lot of the Cabal fiction.
All right.
So that makes sense.
I
that
think
he's a badass. He's a badass.
Yeah, no, Corvus Glaive is cool. I wish I had known that when I was painting him. I wouldn't have phoned him in so hard. I feel kind of bad about how not much work I put into that guy now.
Always buy a new one.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm gonna buy a new Corvus Glaive.
Put him into your
That'd be a
Magneto
slightly-
diorama.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be slightly less dumb than buying a new fucking Black Dwarf and just getting an Ebony Maw to throw in the garbage. That's the extra insulting part, is that it's the most expensive 2-character kit, and it comes with 1 character. Because Ebony Maw is garbage. No, I'm fine. Ebony Maw's fine because he gave us Magneto.
Oh my god.
It's fine.
No.
Oh, I will say that the ability to choose your damage type on Magneto is surprisingly good. Because as we talked about, there's a lot of people with like 4 physical defense, and there's a lot of people with 2 energy defense. And so if you do like his AoE 2 attack off of one of his metal constructs, like I was playing against Max and he had the Guardian, so I was like, okay, well I hit Groot and Rocket with the AoE, so I attack Rocket first. Do you bodyguard? He's like, yes, alright. Doctor Strange gains a power for the Soul Stone. And then I'll just roll damage, and then when I actually attack Groot, I'll do the energy damage if he's got a bunch of hit points left. And so you can kind of decide, like, dial it in on who you want to damage, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, super cool. Super cool.
I do think
I
it's
know.
great. It's very cool.
Parker's-
So much fun. So much fun to watch Magneto turn his steel girders into energy girders and hit you with those.
Or mind girders.
Girders
Girders
that's right.
of the mind.
Or no, mystical magic girders. Yeah. It's so cool to watch him throw magic lampposts and flaming chunks of concrete at you. It's so
Yeah.
much fun.
Well, you know, Parker, that's what happens when you come face to face with the Master of the Mystic Arts. I got him again! That's 2!
What's really cool?
Jeremy's just hanging himself.
Well, my favorite part is after the 17th thing is thrown at you and you're rolling dice and trying to he's like, and then I will use my second activation. And you're like, are you fucking kidding me? Like,
No, my favorite is after I've dazed 2 people, I go, alright, his first action's gonna be, and my opponent, like, looks up and they just get mad. Like, what? You dazed 2 people with 0 attacks? Like, do you have a problem with that?
is that not
Great.
that's cool?
Do your characters not do that?
Oh god.
I love that I've used his throw so many times, and that people just get so tired of being thrown at, they forget they have brace. Like, I don't think a single person I've played against has actually used brace, but it happens so often. They're just like, whatever, I guess I'm dead, whatever. Just throw their model. Like, I'm done. Okay, well, if you played brace, you're the only one that did.
I did.
To be fair,
Brace,
I thought brace
and-
could be I thought you could choose to do brace after you roll dice. That was my
Yeah,
problem.
Parker tried to play brace after he rolled his dodge. I'm like, fuck no, you can't.
Well, that
Can't
seems
do
that
both.
seems better. You can do it, Parker. It's fine.
When I
If
read
it-
the card, I actually read it I read it very closely to see if I could figure out exactly that. The wording is not ambiguous, but it led me to believe that you could do it because the I remember the wording on the card was
The wording is prevent the collision.
right, and
Or
I thought,
you don't suffer damage for the collision.
right, but that's right, and I thought, oh, okay, so you can play it after you roll dice and you're about to suffer damage. That was my logic, but obviously it was
Yeah.
flawed.
Much like everything about you. All right. Well, thank you for listening, guys. I think that's going to do it for us today. Next week, we'll probably go back to doing some more ratings.
Yeah,
Now we've got some more games in.
yeah.
And, yeah, so that's going to be fun. And once again, if you have any questions, like if we want to do a mailbag segment, you guys have some questions for us, we'll be happy to answer them on the podcast. Just send them to our Facebook page, or you can email them to us. Our Facebook page is Infamous space MCP, and our email address is infamous MCPOD as in MCPod at gmail.com. I had to think for a second. I don't use that email.
AOL.com.
Or if you know me, you can message me directly, or if you're part of our Discord channel, which we might make public soon, you can send it in on there. But anyway, thanks for joining us. This has been Brandon.
And Parker.
And Magneto.
Thank you for listening to Crisis Friends. That one wasn't that funny.
I like that
I wasn't ready for it.
I like Crisis Friends. I actually could have been. I when you said we could change the podcast name, I would have been totally cool with Crisis Friends.
Crisis Friends.
Yeah. It sounds like that.
Meanwhile, in the halls of Crisis.
That's why I like it, because it sounds like something. It's an
DC?
It's an
So it's easy to make fun of.
yeah, it's an oxymoron, right? That's the point. It's like jumbo shrimp. It doesn't jive. The two words don't jive. All right.
Like a blue green.
Yeah, or a green. Can I stop this? Can I stop this and
Why would you want to stop?
and download it? I mean, because I'm not gonna lie, that I'm exhausted from talking about and thinking about Magneto and Doctor Strange. I already raged against this machine, and I am beat.
You fought it with your voice.
I fought it.
You physically
Alright,
got
yeah.
beaten as well.
I'm done for.
All right, so let's do the clapping and then we'll end it.
Okay.
Hopefully, Jeremy disconnecting 4 times didn't ruin anything.
Who knows?
I don't know if you noticed, Parker. Basically, every time
no,
Parker
I
was
did.
speaking, Jeremy disconnected.
Mhm. I assumed it was a personal thing. I mean, that's me.
I was
He's like,
mad.
God, is this guy still fucking going?
I was mad.
Disconnect.
Yep, it made me upset. Made my stomach hurt. It's because we're
Probably
awesome.
the best I've heard you clap.
We've been practicing offline.
Yeah. I'm podcasting right now.
Cool.
Is
That's
anyone
great.
else absolutely infuriated the organized play update has not come out yet?
That's pissing me off. It's actually
I'm
the
about
other
ready to
reason
smash
why.
everything I own.
That's actually the other reason
There's
why.
no reason to build lists because we don't know that Magneto is in Cabal yet.
Yeah, that's the other reason why I have been unexcited about building lists, because I'm like, I want to put the X-Men in things, but I can't. Or rather, I can't
Parker-
without knowing if it's working.
It'll probably make you happy that I've changed my roster that I've been playing. I took
you
out.
told me.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm going to tell Jeremy. I took out Valkyrie and MODOK, and I put in Wolverine and Mystique.
Okay.
I'm going
What?
to play actual normal people lists.
I don't even know how to feel about that.
Just kidding. It's going to look like I'm playing a normal list. I'm still going to play
Yeah,
Strange
I
and
thought
Magneto.
so.
And no one's going to see it coming.
Yep. You're like, so in this gunfight, like I'm not really gonna bring a gun, and I'm gonna bring 100 guns, motherfucker. I said not a gun. I'm bringing
How do you
100
feel like
guns.
smart bombs? I brought 30 smart bombs to this OK Corral.
God damn it, so dumb.
I can't wait till the first tournament me and Jeremy get paired up in. I mean, he's just like, so what are you playing? He's like, oh, just regular old Brotherhood. He's like, oh, what are you playing? I'm like, oh, you know, like Juggernaut, Quicksilver, Magneto, Mystique, Ghost Rider, Dark Strange. You're like, what? What was that last part?
What was on there? I mean, you only have
I must have left Pentagram of Farley in my tactics cards by mistake. No big deal. Don't worry about that.
Ugh.
All right. Oh boy. Do you guys remember the movie? What was it called? Grandma's Boy.
Yes.
Did you guys watch that?
I've seen
Yes.
it a bunch.
I feel like Parker is the guy, the Asian like IT developer guy that works with them in the playtest group, and he's just like always about to kill himself because he's so depressed that he thinks he's worthless. And so, like, the main character just walks through. He's like, "Don't slit your wrist yet, Kane." And the guy's like, "Oh my god!" Like he was just like sitting there, just looking at the table on edge. He's like, "I'm such a piece of shit." He's like, "Calm down, man. Like it's gonna be okay."
Dance Dance Revolution. What is that? What is that game?
Did I break it? High score. What does that mean?
What does that mean? So did you?
Okay. So, go ahead.
Oh, I was just
Go
going to
ahead.
ask if you had punished anyone else this week, or was it just me and Parker? Tell me you.
I played Max.
Oh yeah, did he like it? Was it cool?
He took it very well. I tried to go easy on him, and that did not go as
You're like, it's just a 14-inch penis. I mean, I've seen it on. I've seen it
I'm
online.
just gonna put it in through the ear canal.
It's like an entire stool, not a stool leg, an entire stool. I hope you don't mind at all.
Yeah. I'm sure he took it well. Did he?
He actually did.
Did he throw away all his? Did he sell you all his models?
Yeah, he literally just walked out of the parking lot because I don't know if you guys noticed, he has a motorcycle now. So he rides his motorcycle to the store, and when he wants to play Marvel, he just puts his stuff in my truck. And so it's there when he needs it. He drives up, gets it out of my car. We play, he puts the stuff back in my car. But after the game, he walked out of the parking lot, opened my door, and just cartwheeled his box of miniatures into the truck and slammed the door and walked away. He just left his motors. He walked home.
That's appropriate.
He was a little upset. No, he did not do that. But Max is too nice to say he hates me, I think. Parker, there's a problem with your letterhead thing you did.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, there is.
What's
you
wrong?
see, it cuts off after a point. There's like multiple things after Comic Corner, and that they're not showing up.
I know, it doesn't...
Apparently
doesn't
the header
going.
can only be 1/3 of a page.
Yeah, I noticed that.
So what I want you to do, just move that whole thing up to page number 1, and we'll just push everything else down. So that will just be page 1 instead of page 3, and that way we won't have to worry about scrolling all over the place.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will.
So we're on iTunes now, guys. We're on iTunes.
Great.
Tickety tight.
Now that the game's broken.
I'm hesitant to... Shut up. I'm hesitant. Not everyone knows.
Oh.
If you guys don't talk about the list on the podcast, how are people going to know about it?
Well, I mean, poof.
It's not my
Oof.
fault. I discovered Lich 2 well ahead of its time. Like, I had that shit on day 1, and it was just like grinding games. Like, let's go. But anyway, I'm hesitant to tell the story of as to how we're on iTunes and how we weren't previously.
Oh God. What happened?
I might cut this out later. I'll think about it.
Okay.
But so like a week and a half before we even started the podcast, I applied to be on iTunes, or on specifically the Apple Podcast Network.
Mm-hmm.
So I went in, I filled out all the stuff, but we didn't have any episodes yet. So I was just like, well, we can't submit an episode for approval because we don't have it. So it was just like in pending status. And then when me and Parker did the first episode, the episode 0, I uploaded that and I applied. And then I went on like a week later. So I'm like, all right, well, I kind of want to start releasing these now. Like I want to have it on iTunes. And so I'm messing around with it. And it says validation failed. And so I was like, okay, well, what the fuck's going on? So I try and email them, and their email server is down for Apple, or at least their iTunes section. So I can't email them. And this goes on basically every time I edit an episode, I go and check our iTunes status. And it keeps saying not yet available, which wasn't a big deal because we're on the Muse network. And so we're on iTunes, just not under our own name. We're under Muse.
Mm-hmm.
Muse on Minis, if anybody doesn't know what Muse on Minis is. So anyway, we're up through episode 4 is on there, and then I try and upload, and then our hosting service apparently changed the way they format their files, and WordPress won't recognize it without it being like a different standardized file type. And so I can't upload to the Muse network anymore, because obviously they're not going to change anything because they've got like 8 or 9 podcasts on their network. So I was just like, well, there's no point in doing anything about this. And so I was like, well, I'll just go back to try and get on iTunes. And finally their server is back up on episode 7. And so I emailed the guy, and I'm like, hey, can you tell me why our validation failed? I just want to like get our podcast out there because we're no longer on iTunes right now. And I get an email back about a week later. It was a couple days ago. And he says, oh, no, you've been on iTunes the whole time. The validation failed thing doesn't mean you're not on iTunes. I'm like, what? like it won't even let me log in. I just type in the information for my account and it says validation failed, cannot resubmit. Like, how was I supposed to know we're on iTunes? He's like, oh yeah, here's the link. And I check. I'm like, oh my God. And apparently we've just been on iTunes the whole time. And it's just like no one knew. And I had no way of getting the link until the guy emailed it to me. I was like, oh my God. I was so annoyed.
There's 3 people that could have been listening to this podcast.
All 3 of them could have been
those extra 3 people.
We lost all our...
I was wondering where iTunes listens were coming from. Like, how are these people still listening? They must just be listening to episodes 1 through 4 on repeat. Like,
well, my mom does shit like that. It's not a big deal.
The listening to episodes 1 through 4 on repeat, or
Yes.
not knowing how iTunes works?
Well,
God damn it.
on repeat, she knows it helps.
Well, yeah, it does. Totally does. That's why I like listening to the podcast on edit mode, and that way it doesn't count the plays, but I get to listen.
Oh.
So, we're over 300 listens now, guys.
Oh, my.
What?
Total. So, I mean, 300 total, and there's
That's-
8 episodes. So.
That's not a big.
That's still pretty good.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's more than I expected us to ever have. Because I assumed Parker would have quit as soon as I called him an asshole like the 9th time.
Nah, I don't quit for that. I do quit because of Magneto and Doctor Strange.
Clearly.
I'm saying every time you guys say that, someone's going to go check what my list is, and then they're going to start playing it. It's just going to be everywhere.
Good. I hope you motherfuckers all line up just versus each other. Me and Parker will go play.
Yeah.
We'll have a good game.
Yeah.
And you dickheads can have
Yeah,
each other.
No, I'm going to...
We'll have blackjack and hookers.
I'm going to institute the old War Machine versus Hordes rule, and so that way Magneto players won't get paired against each other in the first round. So you're just guaranteed to play against one every tournament.
God.
I am okay with playing against Magneto. I am not okay with playing against Magneto and Doctor Strange.
Playing against Magneto and Strange.
Yeah. Ugh. Strange magnetism.
Do you know why that list is so strong?
I feel like
Do you want
we've
me
conquered
to
that.
tell you?
You go
Well,
ahead.
it's just because you've been brought face to face with the Master of Mystic Arts.
Oh, my God. It's difficult.
So a little bit more analytics about Jeremy's like, I'm gonna just disconnect.
It's difficult.
He'll never know I'm not here.
I didn't have enough to drink.
Dude, I was drinking straight out of the bottle a minute ago.
I saw
You
ya.
see me? Yeah, I was just down in it. So, interesting statistic we have: only 66% of our audience it listens in the U.S. We are 14% from Canada and 14% from the UK. So, thank you, abroad listeners.
Yeah. We
Must be-
I
we
don't
are-
like here.
I was trying to think of something good to say about Brexit or bad. I'm not sure how I
No.
feel about it, but good luck with all that.
Mm-hmm. We're 51% of our listeners listen on Spotify. Maybe that's because they didn't realize we were on Apple. Because I remember it used to be like 75% of our listeners were on Apple Podcasts back when we were L2 War Game.
Well, that's
So
true.
I wonder if that's just a change in trends, or if it's just that people don't have access to us on iTunes yet.
I guarantee it's that. Everybody I talk about podcasts to,
Probably.
they're all like, iTunes. I'm like, I don't. They're like, well, you're doing it wrong. I'm like,
Well,
okay.
come you know iTunes.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not my fault. It's Steve in accounting. That fucker screwed us. I'm pouring my 4th mojito. It's going to take a lot to get through today.
I was gonna say Steve is gonna get it.
Yeah. Everyone email Steve at Apple.
Had it.
He works in the hiring department. It's steve.jobs@apple.
His name sounds familiar. I might have worked with him or went to school with him. I don't
Did you
remember.
guys get it? Did you get me?
I got
see
you.
what I'm putting down.
Yeah.
I'm picking it up.
Oh my god. So it's a long one.
All right. Have you guys memorized this wonderful little spreadsheet I've made?
No,
I've committed it.
You need to
completely
be able to
memory.
recite it verbatim.
I do. Everybody I meet that's new in my world, I make sure that I let them know all I know about these stats that I've memorized.
It's the
It's-
first thing you
I
do.
just beam it into their head.
Yeah.
First thing you do. Hey, listen up. Hey, did you know how many standard deviations Dr.
First
Octopus
off.
is?
First off, you know who Okoye is, right? And they look at me and they're like, maybe, is that from... I'm like, wait. I'm talking about Marvel Crisis here, you dumb fuck. And then it just gets weird. It gets weird every time.
And that's when it gets weird.
And that's when it gets weird.
Hey,
Yeah.
you can lock like a row together, right? So they can't be like offset. Can't you do that with Excel?
You're
Like let's say I've got my spreadsheet database, right? And I don't want the rows to get mixed up if they get resorted. I think there's a way to lock the row to a certain point where it's like these cannot be separated.
There
They will
is.
stay as one chunk.
There is.
I just don't know how to do it, and it just means until I figure it out that we need to be careful when we data sort. That's all that means.
you asking me questions like that it'd be if like a helicopter pilot came up and said, "Hey, so you know how my rotor, right? You know how the rotors work. You know how the inner mechanisms work. Well, how would I do this?" And I cannot even begin to understand.
Hey, I
that
studied
works.
auto rotation in college. Do you know what auto rotation is?
Is it like asphyxiation?
No. It is how to land a helicopter without engine power.
Oh,
Have you ever had an engine fail on you in a helicopter?
not once.
Yeah, it's because auto rotation is really dangerous.
Yeah.
It's not the highest rate of landing.
I have turned off the engine in an airplane before with my grandpa, but that's actually
That's
pretty
a
simple
lot.
to do.
That's a lot safer than the
Yeah.
helicopter.
Yeah, as long as you don't lock the prop, you're pretty good. You'll coast
Yeah.
for a bit.
Cool.
Okay. Jeremy's like, I don't care about fucking helicopters.
What's the distance to the sun in inches? Quickly. Forget it. You guys are
In
fucking stupid.
inches?
You don't know.
Over
fucking idiot.
10,000.
Over
I
100.
I was gonna say 93 million miles, but I don't know what that is in inches. Let's see, 5,280
idiot.
times 12. 72 trillion inches.
Yeah, where's that on your spreadsheet?
I'm gonna throw that as a
stupid?
nice round number.
Spreadsheet that.
I mean, if you let me use the spreadsheet, I can get you an answer in like under a minute.
Oh, I'll get you a toe. I'll get you a toe. It'll have fingernail polish and everything.
All right. Parker, did you get the podcast notes all set up? You can get rid of the headers now.
I did.
All right, I'm gonna get a drink.
This
You
does
guys
not look
work
right.
this shit out. I'll be
This
right
is
back.
this is the organization you had before.
All right, I'm gonna get rid of this header. Is that gonna mess anything up?
What header are you talking about?
I
Oh,
can see
there's still
headers.
the header.
Yeah.
There's still a
Yeah,
header
I
up
got-
there. Yeah,
I got
yeah.
rid of them.
Yeah. I didn't realize. Let me make sure. Yeah, I'll remove them off every page.
I already got rid of, I think, all of them. But do you guys want to talk about the Magneto list, or do you want to keep that shit in the dark?
Well,
I
think
thought it would appear in playing currently, right?
That's what I was, but I'm not going to put it in if you guys are going to like not want me to talk about it.
Well, what do you mean not talk about it?
Do you guys want me to talk about it or not? Like I said, like people might not know about it if I don't talk about it.
Well, I think it's fine to talk about. I think it's.
Okay.
I mean, this is how I'd like to frame it. It's really what I honestly think it is it's a boogeyman. It's what it is, right? It's a big boogeyman. And I think it's totally playable. You can play against it, but it's a play against it, not build against it. And that's tough. So I'd like to talk about that. I think it's worth talking about. Is that this is the first boogeyman I think we found in the game that's really difficult to build against. It's not, I mean, you can totally play against it, but it's not buildable.
That's not true, is it? Isn't Web Warriors a problem list?
A problem list.
I think Web Warriors is just as much of a problem as the list I'm playing.
We can talk about this, but I think it's the kind of play experience that Web Warriors does is it doesn't take away agency like that list does, right? When most lists in the game,
I know you keep saying that, but I don't know that that's true at all.
so. Let's
Making
talk
your
about it.
decisions irrelevant is just as much lack of agency. Like, I'm going to move
let's
here
talk
to
about it
contest
on
this
the
point.
cast,
It's like,
'cause
all right,
I have
move
some
you
things
off,
I
and
wanna
don't
talk
even
about
roll dice. I just say it happens
with
and you're
it.
Like, oh, okay,
And I think that,
and then that's
and it's positive.
but at least
stuff.
I
It's
got to
not
move the
negative, just
character.
hate.
At least I got to do that.
Well, I mean, you got to move the character into the death beams too. Like that.
Right.
Does that change anything?
Did you lock
yes,
up, Brandon?
because I don't lose the character.
Everybody,
Right?
did y'all lock up?
Losing the character creates a different
Uh-oh.
feeling, a different emotional response, and that's what it is. It's entirely emotional response. I think you're right. If you remove a emotion from it and you're just talking about like the outcome of the game, I think the outcomes are very similar. I think Web Warriors is as dangerous as a Super Elite game, but Web Warriors is a scenario game, and therefore you're going to get to keep your models.
I find this argument very intellectually dishonest because I got into this very similar argument a lot of times in Mark II War Machine, and players would be like, "Well, Lich 2 isn't a negative play experience," and they're like, "Explain to me how he isn't," because he is the most negative play experience I've ever had in this game. And they say, "Well, it feels like you're winning for most of the game until he decides to win, and then all your models die and he wins." You're like, but I know that's gonna happen because I'm not a fucking moron. And he's like, yeah, but that's why people think it's not that bad. I'm like, that's not true. Like, everyone that plays against this list in a tournament knows it's overpowered and broken, and knows it's not fun because your decisions don't matter because it's so much better than you. And then it's like, on the reverse side, playing against someone like Haley 2, which is a control list, they say is more of a negative play experience because it denies you choices. Like, you no longer are making decisions. You're just doing what your opponent tells you to do because you have no options. And so I think they're both just as negatively interacting with your opponent. Anytime you're removing their ability to do something and reducing their choices to a smaller amount, it's going to take fun away from them. And so if you do that through moving their models into less relevant positioning, or moving them into places where they can't do what they want to do, or killing their models once they get within your range, I think the control list is way more of a negative play experience. Like, if you move up and punch someone and they punch you back and kill you, I don't know that that's a negative play experience because you got to punch them, like, or you got to move your models. In both situations, you're making choices, but in one, they're not undoing your choices. They're just destroying your pieces. And both of them, like, obviously getting tabled isn't fun, but I don't know how it's less fun than just not getting to make choices.
I don't think, but I think we talked about it before, is that if you see Doctor Strange and Magneto across from you, your opponent has made the choice for you. You are no longer playing the attrition game. If you had that as part of your strategy, you have to abandon it immediately. That's part of the loss of agency. I think that's something that you feel whenever you see when you see those three models. You go, okay, so now I don't get to play against them. I only get to play the scenario. If I can play the scenario better than they do, I can win. But that's the way I can win, because I can't win by removing their models. It's taken away one of the win conditions out of the game in a way that's quite final. And I think that. And we were pretty confident that's the way it works, right? Even the best attrition lists in the game don't beat those 12 points, or 13 points if you get to pay the time stone. So if the best attrition list in the game can't beat those 13 points, if 20 points versus of attrition stuff can't beat the 13 points, as it is currently in the game, maybe one day there'll be something that can do it. But as is currently the game, since that can't happen, then you have to abandon the strategy, right? Abandon hope, all ye who enter the house of Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom. Not Doctor Doom, Magneto.
Why would you say 20 points can't beat 13 points?
Because I don't know what 20 points you put down on the field are going to go up against Doctor Strange and Magneto. We talked about this. Like, we don't know what 20 points you can field against Doctor Strange and Magneto.
Well, I mean, currently they're, like, I don't know why you would assume they could win down 7 points when they're currently just winning at even points. Like, I don't understand that logic. You think they're that much better?
Well, no. What I'm saying is those 13 points are the difference makers, right? They're the money makers. They're the ones that are actually going to create everything. All the scenarios for winning come from those two models, those 13 points. And the other models are just supplementing, right? Ghost Rider is taking hits. That's really all he has to do, and you can win. Wong can heal. All he has to do is heal. Even the numbers
against the other points, like what? It's the whole point of having, like, if they could win down 7 points, I wouldn't be taking Ghost Rider. I'd be taking like Okoye, right? I'd be putting in Captain America and Okoye instead of Ghost Rider. Because all I need to do is keep my characters alive longer. It's like, I still need more damage, because 2 people attacking can't kill 7 fucking characters.
But at 20 points, but the game plays at 20 points, right? I'm saying that if you have 20 points and they have 20 points, if 13 of those points are Doctor Strange and Magneto, you're not losing the attrition game, right? Because that's actually the way the game plays. I'm saying if you put that 13 points, we talked about this extensively. Like, there's not an attrition list. There's not a list that plays the attrition game better than than 20 points with 13 of it being Doctor Strange and Magneto.
Well, but I never said I was giving up the rest of my points. You need those points.
Yes, but I'm saying once you see 13 of it taken up by that, all ye abandon hope. It's gone. The ability to win with attrition is gone.
Well, if after one game you can just decide that it's literally unbeatable, then I guess that's how it is. Because nothing's going to change your mind if you're already like completely decided.
I'm actually not going from that. I'm going from our extensive conversation afterwards. We talked for like 2 hours about it. We tried. You gave me many examples about how you crunch numbers and try to imagine a world where it could lose, and you couldn't yet. There's always dice variance, sure.
But you keep saying like, well, all that matters is that 12 or 13 points. Like, well, it's not. Like, the rest of your list does matter, else you wouldn't take it. Like, it's not that 12 points is unbeatable. It's that 12 points is better than another 12 points. And that advantage will carry you to victory.
Sure.
Because any 12 points you're putting up against that, the rest of our lists, there's no way you have an advantage big enough to cover the advantage I have.
Yes. The way you just articulated it is yes. It's what I was attempting to say when I said that if 12 of your points in your list is those two models, then the other 8 points or whatever is not superfluous, but it doesn't matter because as long as you see that 12 points. If I'm standing on one side of a table and I see Doctor Strange and Magneto on the other side of the table, I know that my army isn't going to beat the attrition game. It's not going to win it. It's been decided for me. In list selection, it's been decided for me.
I think the way you have to play the game has been decided. I don't think that victory is determined yet. You can't just run at them and stab them. That doesn't work.
No. Like whatever strategy I had to beat up their models no longer applies. I now am playing purely a scenario game. That is what I'm doing now, and maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe people could play that all day long and not have a problem with that. Maybe that's something maybe that's just a new era for the game. Maybe that's what's being ushered in here. That there will be a rock paper scissors kind of relationship between scenario play, elite models, and the kind of generalist, right? Maybe there is some sort of relationship there that they're trying to build. That there is a best attrition version of the game, so it's going to win against a list that's trying to balance, and the balanced list may do better against scenario. I don't know. I'm just throwing shit out. So maybe there is, like I said, a Rochambeau thing going on here. But up until this point, we hadn't found that in the game, right? We haven't found that boogeyman. We hadn't found the one list that doesn't seem to be able to lose that kind of game.
Well, it was supposed to be Black Order. Like, that was their design role.
Yes. And that was one of I said I was kind of, I felt after playing this game, I felt sorry for Black Order because that was kind of the thing they were supposed to do, but they get totally outclassed.
Well, it's really that Black Order has, outside of what's his name, Thanos, has basically no action economy or mobility even, really. Like, its mothership is it. And so how does Corvus Glaive get to you? Like, he has to go through all these tricks or like wait for you to come to him. And so if your opponent has better positioning or board control than you do, he kind of just ends up watching the battle and then tries to come in and like one-shot somebody. As where the list that I'm playing, Strange and Magneto, they don't, like, the range at which they can affect the battle is obviously much greater, and they're honestly probably a little more survivable than Corvus Glaive and, like, Proxima. Definitely Ebony Maw, but probably Proxima and Corvus. They're about equivalent in survivability, but they definitely put out as much damage, if not more, because they end up getting more attack actions. Like, Corvus Glaive hits harder than either of them, but doesn't get to apply his damage efficiency very well because he has no charge mechanic.
Also, his damage, like Corvus Glaive's damage, is a bucket of damage on usually one thing. So, even two. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you get a bucket of damage, you get a bunch of rerolls, whatever, skulls, whatever. He does a ton of damage. Whereas Magneto can say, well, I'll spend a little bit. You'll die if I throw this at you. That's not a big deal. And then the other guy has much more damage. So he's like, how about I throw this huge-ass thing and then also attack? So he's able to, like, scalpel shit out, where Corvus is just like...
The fact that he can he can dial in the damage
Yes.
based on how much health you have left.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you've got one? Well, here's a lamppost.
And that's
Oh,
exactly
you're
what
still
you.
alive?
That's
Here's a
exactly what
car.
you did.
Oh,
to
now
me.
you're dead.
Yeah.
Now that I've spent 4 power, I'll attack this chump over here, gain 3 or 4 back, and just start from scratch again. It was like, let's say he's at 2 now. All right, I throw a card at him. Okay, he's dead. All right, so now I've got like 2 power. Now I'll shoot this jackass that's got 6 hit points. Do 3 or 4 to him, and then I'll spend the rest of my power throwing like a building at him, so he's gonna die. Like the amount of efficiency he gets on his attacks is enormous.
Which is way different than Corvus. Like, again, how many models has Corvus overkilled? Like, all of them.
Oh yeah,
Like, all of them.
he's probably done like 80 damage overkill in just the times I've played him.
Yeah.
Because it's like, 13. And you're like, well, I have 4 hit points.
And
so-
this is exactly the kind of conversation we were having afterwards, where you stack up those 13 points as a unit, as a module, against any other group of 13 points in the game, and you say, okay, now win the attrition game now, and it just doesn't seem to make any sense, right? The math doesn't add up, the tactics and strategies don't add up. So, if it's the big attrition boogeyman, if you can't beat it up, you have no reasonable expectation. Can't is a bad word. You don't have a reasonable expectation that you can beat it up. Then
you have to find a
then-
different way to achieve victory.
right, and I guess what
Flip
I'm
the
saying,
odds.
yeah, and I guess what I'm saying is, it's just like any other game, where you don't fight fair, right? There is a way to win. There is a way to win, but you're not fighting fair. You are skewing the game in your favor hard and hoping that your opponent doesn't take advantage of your skew and find out its weak point, right? It's Achilles' heel, because it's got one. It's just the number of models. But but even then, we talked about this. Even then, because of how strong the list is at manipulating the opponent, it is possible to still lose, even if you do a lot of things right. It's still possible. It's actually a game. It's as opposed to a non-game.
So, I mean, from what I see, the boogeyman is actually web warriors. I mean, do they just come in and make a game of it and grab everything, push everything around, and escape? I mean, they very well could.
That was one thing me and Parker specifically talked about was, does this actually is it so good on attrition that it makes web warriors scared? And like I said, I haven't played the game yet, but I feel like web warriors are heavily advantaged in that game, but I don't think they'll be able to ignore me, because I don't need to huddle up to necessarily survive against them, because I think I can just scalpel out enough of their stuff to make a game of it. I think I still lose. I don't think I can stop them from getting to 16, but I think I can make a game of it. Certainly a lot more than Blackwater does. Jeez.
I feel like if you took the Portal of Farley out of their hands, they're a totally fair list. Is that weird to say? If you have to give
I
up,
think you're.
if you have to
I
give
think
up
you're
actions,
very wrong.
if you have to give
But
up actions,
I understand why you're saying that.
yeah. If you have to give up actions to move, and I can tell where you're going to be, like if I can look at your model and go, you can only attack me in this radius, that's all you can do, then I think the game is very, very playable. But with the Portal, it totally skews that. Now, when it goes down,
Yeah.
now you have it again, right? You do have the ability to gauge range again once it goes down, but even then, man, it's deceiving. If I played against it a bunch, maybe I'd start to learn it and be totally fine with its presence. But
So people at home, they're wondering about what he's talking about with the Portal. I had the most obscure Portal of Farley placement in the game I played against Parker, and you guys can actually watch this game. We played it on Tabletop Simulator. It's on our YouTube channel. It's Tabletop Simulator game number 3. It's Parker versus Brandon, Defenders versus Cabal.
mm-hmm.
But I basically placed my 2 portals like 4 or 5 inches apart, like range 5 from my board edge. And it looks stupid as hell when I put it down, but it ends up being amazing throughout the game. And just the ability to basically gain a move action for 1 power, and I do it like probably 8 times during the game. It's very powerful.
Where did you put it? Like, what did you do?
So it's like range 5 from my board edge, like 6 inches apart.
parallel with his backboard.
Yeah, just parallel right next to each other.
It allowed him to move laterally across the board.
Yeah, so it allowed me, instead of going forward and exposing myself, I would just hopscotch side to side and go where I needed to go. And I think we were doing the Secure B, the Infinity Formula. Yeah, we were doing Infinity Formula and Montesi Formula were our 2 scenarios. But yeah, so we were deployment B, so it was like table quarters. And so with the placement, I could get range to both of my table quarter objectives. And so he kind of needed to take one of them, or he wanted to take one of them, and then I ended up having, I think, 2 of the 3 books. And so even if he was holding 1 book and both of his quarters, I would have 2 books and 1 of mine. And so we were at a stalemate on scenario.
And also, one of the most important pieces is you didn't give him access to the portals. That's what's kind of cool about that little setup.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it's supposed to be a drawback, but it's not if you're just using it for yourself.
Well, I had been playing this list with Hulk in it, and the whole point was that Hulk could get to you on turn 2 with like 5 power and just beat the shit out of you. And there was really nothing you could do about it, because I would just pass until you had gone with enough characters that you couldn't retaliate properly, and then Hulk would just appear, beat the shit out of 2 guys, you do your last activation, then I activate first next turn, do it again and teleport away. And you didn't have a chance to ever retaliate against Hulk, and you got 2 activations with basic impunity. And then came back to my team, got healed by Strange and Wong and Patch Up, and is back at full. We just do it again next turn.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the whole point of the list. It didn't work very well because Hulk is so bad, but it was fun. I had a lot of fun playing that list.
Well, it's different when you have
I definitely had, like... Go ahead.
Well, it's just different when you have a model that's killable in your list. And Hulk is killable. His defense is shitty all the time.
I don't like my models dying.
I mean, his defense is so shitty all the time.
I would much rather have my models just never die, and so I've been playing what I've been playing lately.
And you did it.
Yeah.
You fucking did it.
But I was gonna say it's a lot more fun to play 35 health Hulk than 20 health Hulk. Because like when he's at like 10 damage throughout the game, but every turn they keep attacking him and he just stays around 10 health. It's like, why isn't he dying? It's like, well, I healed him for 11 last turn, so sorry. Okay, Jeremy, do you have any Daily Bugle questions for us?
Nope.
Are you going to do that ever again?
Yeah, I will, but I kind of got all the easy ones out, and I didn't get a nap today, so I'm tired.
Didn't get a nap today, so I'm tired. All right.
I had to drive to work twice. It sucked.
Whoa, that's a lot of driving to work twice.
It works a long way away. It sucks.
What? I got rid of this bullet point. How do I get it back? Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are you writing my crunch the numbers?
What'd you say?
What'd you say, Bart?
Do we have a main topic today, or are we just kind of...
No.
Okay.
Well, the crunch the numbers is going to end up being the main topic.
Got it.
Main topic is just like generic drop-in for the week. Parker, you ready with your comic corner?
Yeah. It'll make a lot more sense when we get
Even
team affiliation, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I don't... That's right, I cut this off. What do you do to get the bullets? This thing? Okay.
You got it.
Actually, I don't want it for this. I'm going to grab some water. You guys go ahead and get anything else you need, and we'll get started in a couple minutes.
Okay.
Jeremy, try not to lose internet again.
Fuck.
Who's the damn writer? Oh, here it is.
What is it you have this time?
A versus X. A versus X is the big Avengers X-Men crossover fight. It was pretty cool.
Does it have Doctor Strange teamed up with Magneto?
Doctor Strange is in it. He's on the Avengers side, and no, he doesn't fight Magneto. One of the coolest fights in it is Magneto versus Iron Man, though. It's a cool fight. One of my favorite things about it is it says Master of Magnetism versus a man in a metal suit, and if you thought this was a one-sided fight, then you don't know Tony Stark.
His suit's obviously made of aluminum.
It's carbon fiber, basically, is what he makes the suit out of for this fight. One of the best things is he can't he's trying to fight him, and so he basically he's like, how do you plan on beating me, Stark? He goes, through lavish spending. And so he uses a series of satellites that he has to siphon off the electromagnetic field of Jupiter. So he has like linked satellites from Jupiter to Earth, and he like pours them through his Iron Man suit, which is just awesome, right? Because that's what Tony Stark does. Lavish spending.
Lavish spending.
Yeah.
I cut up even more stuff today for my diorama.
None of it is
You're
mine.
totally cut.
Parker, don't give him anything. He'll cut your shit up.
Well, it's not like Parker's going to use his terrain.
No,
That's true.
if you want it, you go right ahead. You go right ahead, sir.
Parker, can you come drop off all your terrain at the store tomorrow?
Do you really need it all? Are you being facetious?
No, I totally need it.
He will take it.
I feel like this sounds like a lie.
No, he'll take it. Seriously.
He
tries to steal everybody's
I'm like
shit.
90% done building my my metal objects for Magneto. I got those 2 new bases installed in my diorama, so I just got to start actually building stuff, which I'll probably do over the weekend. I'll probably have most of the physical parts of the diorama done this weekend.
Oh shit! I'll be right back. Hold on.
Parker died.
It happens.
But if he can get me some lampposts,
I know, dude. I'm not giving you shit. You're gonna have to deal with your own stuff. Yeah, you can tell that online what everybody's been posting and how the attention is not towards what we've been talking about. That nobody's fucking played it. They don't know. They don't fucking know, dude.
I mean, the problem is I know there's a lot of people that play Marvel, and I know there's a lot of like very competitive people that play Marvel. I also know that not a lot of them are active on social media. So I feel like a vast majority of the people that do post on social media are a lot more of like casual people or new to miniatures games. And a lot of them are more interested in posting pictures of their models because they're excited about all the cool models and paint jobs they've done, which is whatever. That's fine. Obviously, that's completely justified.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think there's a lot of people like and you can tell by the rules forum when the questions are like, if I use the Montesi formula spell book to make an attack, do I have to spend an action to make that attack? Like that's one of the questions on the rules forums. I've read every question on the rules forum, and the vast majority of them are just like, if I attack someone, does it cost an action? Like, yes, it does. Like, come on. Like, did you even try to read the rule book? Or did you just, like, hit yourself in the head with it a few times? Like, it's not working. Like, and move on.
I bought Hulk and Black Panther and a couple other boxes. Do I need to buy the dice?
Yeah, maybe. And that's not saying, like, people that play this game are bad at playing games or anything. Like, obviously, there's a ton of people that know what they're doing. But I think a lot of people, like, obviously, you can tell based on the last 2 weeks of our podcast and what we've talked about, we put a lot more thought into, like, number crunching and, you know, efficiency than I think a lot of people do. A lot of people just want to play the cool models, which is fine, because it just so happens that me wanting to play the cool models end up finding broken stuff. I definitely feel like early Mark III when I was, like, ahead of the meta by 6 months and like people hadn't figured out what I was playing yet. And they're like, Brandon, why are you playing that? That's really bad. I'm like, no, it's not. You just don't understand why.
Give me a minute. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Then meanwhile, everything I was playing was banned 6 months later. I'm like, this game sucks now. They banned everything I was playing. And like, maybe you shouldn't have been playing it. I was like, it's not my fault they made broken stuff.
I don't know the sound it makes. I don't know what it's called.
I don't know what it's called. I just know the sound it makes when it wins me games.
Parker must have had an angry baby situation.
Yeah, I think he is a kid aggro. He just heard the sound of like a suitcase full of glassware falling down the stairs. And he's like, I have to go. Like, he just ran out of the room.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Dad, we were trying to pack up all the dishes. Just like pushed it off the railing.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen those family prank videos when, like, people have balconies in their house and, like, the dad's up on the balcony tossing the kid up in the air, and the wife has told him not to do this like 1,500 times.
Mm-mm.
And then the kid's in on it, and it's like he catches the kid, puts the kid down, picks up a weighted doll, and throws it over the balcony.
Oh, yeah,
and it
yeah.
just ragdolls down,
Oh,
and the
man.
mother comes in screaming. Like, that would be me if I was
That would be
married.
bad.
I wouldn't be married very long, but it would be exciting while it lasted.
All right, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Welcome back, Parker.
Welcome back.
Did a child fall down the stairs? We were speculating.
No, it was just I thought I heard a yell, like a scream, and it was a yell, but it was like a nightmare. But she's
No.
okay.
There's 3 grown
just
men
assumed
that broke
he-
in your house.
Yeah. He just turns the corner, looks up the stairs, and his daughter's just dabbing, yelling "yeet" at the top of the stairs. He's like, "Go back!"
Yeah, she's not quite dabbing, yelling yeet yet, but
Yeah.
she's more like
give it like a year, because that'll be when kids of young ages are doing it, and the older kids think it's dumb.
Yeah, nobody dabs anymore. I do it ironically in front of my middle schoolers class all the time, and it's fun.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we're about ready to start. Jeremy, you have stuff to work on model-wise. I assume that's in your hobby projects.
I don't even own them yet. I'm not buying anything more.
Oh, you're done? Done forever?
Done.
Fuck this
I
game.
quit. Me and Parker are going to quit together. We're going to play Xbox instead.
I'm going to play Assassin's Creed,
I'm gonna go play-
where I can fight for 3 hours to get a ladder or something that I'm going to forget about in 6 months and never remember.
Excuse me.
But I'll get to talk about it with all my friends I don't have on Xbox Live.
Goddamn
about how
ninja.
badass their profile pics are. Oh, wait. Did I go too far?
I think you got triggered.
No, it's just whatever. I used to spend a lot of time playing Xbox, and then I graduated middle school.
I like all the videos of all the smoke coming out of Xboxes. There's tons.
It's like
there's
The
tons
Office
of bad
when the
things.
printers had that problem.
Yeah.
They figure out the printers catch fire if they print over 100 pages.
Yeah, I actually don't have. I didn't pick up those models. I forgot to buy them the other day.
Okay. I'll remind you tomorrow when you come up and play games.
What's tomorrow? No, that's Thursday.
Thursday. Yeah, it is Thursday. What do you mean, no, it's Thursday? It is Thursday.
I can't. No, I'm saying I can't play on Thursdays.
Why not?
I have my children.
They can come.
Not so much.
We'll give them some 40k models and they'll slam them together while we're playing Marvel.
I might have.
Alright, fine.
I might have Saturday free though. What are you doing Saturday?
Working on my Magneto diorama.
Diorama.
Diorama. It's like a disco-rama, but slightly different. The disco ball is actually just a giant whirling ball of death.
Every time you talk about your diorama, it reminds me of the Simpsons episode where they made dioramas, and the one kid just had Star Wars models, just in a box or whatever, and then he ended up winning, and then he smacked
That's
it down,
Ralph,
dropped
yeah.
it. Yeah, he's like, "You broke my Wookiee."
I bent my Wookiee. Yeah. Just a box
Well,
full
Ralph.
of Star Wars figs.
Well, Ralph, it looks like
I
you
never
won.
watched that much Simpsons.
I did.
My family didn't own a TV when I was young.
Sorry, bro.
Stop, man. You don't have to be sorry about it. This is raining cold hard facts up in this bitch.
All we.
All right, you guys ready?
Yeah.
I'm ready.